Alright everybody, welcome back to another Xvault gaming video. Xvault here, and today I wanted to make a video upon some requests out there. I know this is a smaller channel, but there are some requests that did want me to elaborate and talk a bit more about why exclusives matter, why they're a thing still today, and why they are important, or maybe even not important, as some folks don't believe they are. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump to it. Alright, so like I was saying, what we're going to do is talk about exclusives, platform exclusives, ecosystem exclusives, why they matter, what's the point of them, or do they not really matter, and all that good stuff there, right? Well, let's start off. First and foremost, people have reached out to me multiple times in comments on social media asking too. They hate exclusivity, they think it shouldn't exist. They give a bunch of reasons, and not that they're not sound or solid reasons, but they just don't understand the gravitas of it and why they are important, and they just think it's not fair. The funny part is, and this is not a salty batch video, but the funny part is it is mostly Xbox-centric players. Now, we can go into the psyche of that and why and everything like that, but let me just break down why exclusives in this video are important. Now, we can go all the way back in the day we won't go back as far as Atari, but let's go back to the original true console wars of Nintendo and Sega. Now, that being said, we had different mascots for those, right? If we didn't have mascots, if we didn't have that special IP, we're talking about Mario on Nintendo. We're talking about Sonic the Hedgehog himself on Sega. If we didn't have something to rival that platform type of genre to kind of mirror that Mario IP, right? What do we have? What was the reason to get a Sega Genesis over a Nintendo system or even a Super Nintendo, and so on and so forth as the years went on? That is the million-dollar question. Now, let me ask you, the audience, and everybody else in between, what makes you go to an ecosystem, to a platform? What brings you into that brand? If you have no question, or you don't know the answer, then we have to dig a little bit deeper. For most of you, I hope you said it's the games. The games is what drives you to an ecosystem or platform. That is 100% de facto the truth of the matter. If we had Mario and everything else under that Nintendo umbrella, and we just had random games on Sega Genesis, right? Let's say we didn't have that one good, great IP, and we just had some one-offs. Let's take, for example, if there weren't certain games on Nintendo as well, let's take like Primal Rage, Eternal Champion, stuff like that. I know some of those ended up being on the other platform and stuff, but let's just talk, about maybe even Phantasy Star Online, down the line, right? Or we get the original Phantasy Star 1, 2, and 3 and such like that. You have different games, but those ended up being exclusives as well. If all those games, let's say Sonic and, Eternal Champions and Phantasy Star, Altered Beast, Streets of Rage, all the great games that were on Sega Genesis as exclusive for a long time, let's say Nintendo kept Mario and Donkey Kong and Mario Kart and Yoshi and Legend of Zelda, Kirby, list goes on and on. Let's say they kept those all still exclusive. All right, for the sake of conversation, those all stayed exclusive. But all of Sega Genesis games, Sonic and everything else that was exclusive growing up, or if you grew up with the system, were also on Nintendo. What would be the point of getting a Sega Genesis, aside from possibly more power? They touted that they were faster, they touted they were stronger. You have a different controller, of course, the ABC buttons. You still got the D-pad, but it was a bigger controller. The console was black, it wasn't gray. It didn't have the other aesthetics that Nintendo had, but again, what's going to bring you over to Sega Genesis as opposed to the Nintendo console if it had all those games? The answer should be nothing. The answer should be you would only own a Nintendo system in the 80s and even the 90s. Why would you get a Sega Genesis if it did not have anything to offer you but a controller or a different aesthetic, possibly a little bit of a faster processing unit? What would be the difference? That's my question. There wouldn't be a difference. You would get the Nintendo system, 100%. Now, let's fast forward through the years and everything like that again. And we can then get into the point where we had Xbox, we had PS2, we had the Sega Dreamcast, we had the latest Nintendo system. They all had their own particular exclusive games. If PlayStation didn't have Final Fantasy VII, if PlayStation didn't have Battle Arena Toshinden or other unique games that were exclusive to their platform, Tenchu, Devil May Cry, Monster Rancher, all this stuff as we go on through the years and stuff and think from early through PS1 to PS2 and all that stuff, if those were available still on the Nintendo system as well, why would you go to a brand new system as well? You have to have the games to entice the consumer to bring you over to that console platform or to that ecosystem or whatever you want to call it. That's how that works. If you had, nobody's going to jump in. If you think about it, nobody is going to jump in and go, I'm just going to get a PlayStation or I'm going to get an Xbox, even though everything's available everywhere. Let's say Mario, as we went through, let's change the timeline a little bit. Let's say Mario and Donkey Kong, Mario Kart, Kirby, all the stuff I listed and then some is available on every platform as they were arriving. They came to Sega Genesis, they eventually came to PlayStation as well, they went to Xbox, all vice versa. None of these guys are going to enter the fray. What is the point of owning a different system? You would then have to look to what does that system do that differs from the others? And as time goes on and technology goes on, the more similar they become to a PC. And we know that they would also be available on PC, right? Because we have to throw that in the fray. Then why would you own a PlayStation? Why would you own a Nintendo? Why would you own a Sega Genesis? I'm going to let you sit with that for a second. Why would you own any of those? Why would you not just go PC? People want to argue the fact that, well, where my friends are at, well, your friends can change at any time, at any moment of any hour. So you'd be looking to what gives you the best performance. What controller does the best for you? And I promise you, even if you preferred an Xbox controller over a Nintendo controller, if every game was available everywhere, you're still going to go to where your friends are at. And if Nintendo led it early, and everybody was there, no one's going to jump over to Xbox, even though the games are there. Even if it performs better on the Xbox system, you're going to stay on the Nintendo ecosystem because that's where your friends and family are probably still playing. There's no reason to jump over. So that long context, that long prologue here to set up this question here is that is why, or to set up the answer is that is why. You have to have the particular games to an ecosystem or platform in order for that to exist, in order for that to bring over a consumer, to give them a reason to buy into that platform or ecosystem. As of today, there are still exclusives, and there is a reason for that. Without exclusives, there's no reason to stay with PlayStation if all of PlayStation games were on Xbox. There is no reason to stay with Nintendo necessarily if Nintendo games were available on PlayStation and Xbox. There's no reason for it. Absolutely zilch none. And again, it resorts back to the fact of what makes the most sense. What makes the most sense is where your friends and who you want to play with are at. If you're a lone wolf out there and you do your own thing and it's just up to you and aesthetics, sure, but that's not enough to change the momentum. That's not enough to change the sales of said system that you want to support. They cannot survive without you or the consumer buying enough of the software to support that ecosystem. As a matter of fact, if that didn't happen, guess what? We would probably all just have PCs to this day. That's where it would have landed. There would be no consoles. Consoles have benefits because they're simple to set up. You can have them last 5 to 8 to 10 years and you're good to go and play all the games on them without needing to upgrade or anything like that before you get into the next quoted generation. There's so many variables out there that could be thought of, that could have happened if we would have went back in time and did everything that I talked about. But that's essentially, in a nutshell, why exclusives matter. Exclusives aren't always going to sell the most as opposed to a multi-platform game. You're right. Spider-Man 2 is not going to sell more than Call of Duty, because Call of Duty is always going to be a multi-platform game, at least as far as I can tell, even though, Microsoft still owns the IP now. It makes most sense and the most amount of business sense to make that money making it multi-plat. Again, Spider-Man is not going to sell more than Call of Duty. Horizon series is not going to sell more than Call of Duty. Last of Us, Uncharted, God of War, they are going to sell well. They're just not going to sell more than the very popular multi-platform IPs. But that's what brings you over to that platform, is the fact that, I can only play Spider-Man 1 and 2. Insomniac Spider-Man 1 and 2 is the only game I can play over on said ecosystem. For a time, and still at this time of recording, the only place I can play Halo, Fable, Grounded, well, not Grounded now, but Crackdown, and that's rumored to be coming. Redfall, if you want to consider that. Just using some examples here. I have to get an Xbox or a PC. If I want to play Mario, Odyssey, Breath of the Wild 1 and 2, Kirby, Metroid, Pokemon, I need a Nintendo. Putting away all de facto stuff of the PC where you can emulate or pirate or whatever the case is, nixing that out, I need a Nintendo. I need a PlayStation. I need an Xbox or PC to make sure that I get to play the games I want that are the ones that interest me. That is why. So for those of you out there stating this whole time, it's not fair. It doesn't make sense to me. They should do away with it. Everybody should have access to games because I want to play on my platform and my ecosystem of my choice. Well, that's cute. That's fun. But in reality, that's not how business works. These businesses, PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, Amazon, whether Google for Google Stadia, they are not here for you. They are there for them. To make them money. To bring you as a consumer over to their ecosystem to make money. One of the mainstays of doing that are the games. We're circling all the way back around. Are the games. We were talking about them this whole time, but it is the games. I can't stress that enough. You play in a particular ecosystem because of the games. If Spider-Man or Mario was across every single system, especially nowadays, let's say you're young enough, you're getting into gaming, you're making your choice. What's the point of owning a Nintendo over an Xbox if Mario Odyssey was on both day and date, or they eventually came a year later, whatever the case is? What is the point? That is exactly the point. That's why exclusives are there. That's why they matter. I hope you really listen to this video for those of you that do not understand why. I wasn't going to break down the data, the sales statistics, because I don't need to. The main point is, why are there exclusives? Why do they exist? That is why. That's why you got a lot of PC elitists out there that get very upset over console exclusivity, because they also feel they have the right, even though they pirate, a lot of them pirate, emulate, whatever, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes bad. They are upset at consoles when there is exclusives to those consoles. And there's a reason for that, and I understand why. But again, as a business, they're not here for you. PC elitists like to play by their own rules. They think they're above the rules. They think they're above how everything works in reality, and they're not. There's a lot of pros to PC gaming, absolutely, and I'm not taking that away. But this is talking about exclusives, why they're there, why they matter, and why some people are upset, and it always seems to be the ones that are upset. Nintendo fanboys, or Nintendo fans in general, are not upset. that play. I know I don't hear Nintendo fanboys upset that Spider-Man or God of War is an exclusive to PlayStation, because they understand how exclusivity works with their Pokemon games and Legend of Zelda games and the Mario games and the Metroid games and the Kirby games and all that. They understand how that works. Do you see? Have you noticed? They understand how that works. PlayStation fans do not get upset when we've seen Indiana Jones being exclusive to Xbox and PC. We may be like, hey, dang, I'd like to play that on my platform, but we don't get mad like, why is that exclusive? The most that PlayStation fans got irritated about is the fact when Microsoft, yes, went ahead and bought ZeniMax. So you knew they were probably going to have exclusives or timed exclusives that were Fallout and Elder Scrolls and everything else that might fall under their umbrella, because that wasn't supposed to be the case. So that's a change. Now, if it's something that they bought and new IPs garnered new IPs and those were exclusives, probably, that's more understandable, right? It makes sense. But when there's already established IPs, that's what was upsetting, right? But for the most part, PlayStation fans understand how exclusives work, why they exist, and why they're there. It seems like PC and Xbox fans tend to be the ones that are most upset about it and don't understand why they're there, and that everybody could be a kumbaya and why that should work out in the grand scheme of things, but they just don't understand. And some do, but they still hope that it wouldn't. But it just wouldn't exist. So your brand is probably going to cease to exist as far as a platform if that's how you truly wanted things to be. Just stating the truth there. So just wanted to break that down. Didn't want to make this a 30-minute documentary thing, but I wanted to get all that information out there, and hopefully I cleared that up for a lot of you out there that may A, already know this, or B, don't understand or kind of understood, but just didn't fully grasp the concept of why. I really hope this video helps you out. I truly do. That was my goal. This isn't a trolling video. This isn't an assault video. I just want to break that information down and explain why. Not to poke fun at you, not to make fun of exclusivity in general and ha ha he he, you don't get this or that, but this is why it exists, and I really hope that sheds some light for you and you can sit back and be like, you know what? That makes sense in the grand scheme of things. That's the goal of my video here that I wanted to make, and hopefully you found it helpful for you. Please let me know down in the comments below, one way or the other. Would love to hear from you. We'll end the video here. Just want to mention, of course, if you did enjoy the video, definitely leave a like. Helps out the algorithm for sure. If you haven't already, definitely consider subscribing, helping out a small content creator like myself. We are getting ever so close to that 1,500 goal, so thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That being said, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you next time on the next Xvault Gaming video. And until then, take care.